Hello, dear students. My name is Ангелина Сергеевна. I'm glad to be there. And today we are going to discuss favorite books of foreign students. Всем привет! Я очень рада проводить сегодняшний вебинар. Он уже третий у нас. Я надеюсь, вам нравится и все оказывается для вас очень продуктивно. Сегодня мы будем с вами говорить о любимых книгах зарубежных школьников. Let's start. First, let's read the poem. What is a book by Laura Junetta? A book is pages, pictures, and words. A book is animals, people, and birds. A book is stories of queens and kings, poems and songs, so many things. Curled in the corner where I can hide, with a book I can journey far and wide. Through its only paper from end to end, a book is very special friend. Yeah, I like this poem a lot, so I just wanted you to know about it. And now I'd like you to answer the following questions. Do you like reading books? And if yes, I hope you do. How many books do you have at home? Just for us to start this topic. Okay, wonderful. Let's go. Now, just for us to warm up, let's do exercise 2. Look at these quotations and put the words in the correct order. We have a quotation of Cicero, an English philosopher Francis Bacon, and an American president Thomas Jefferson. Words in these quotations are mixed, and you are to put them in the correct order, just to make this quotation correct and sound beautiful. Вам нужно в правильном порядке перемешать слова в данных цитатах. Первая цитата принадлежит Цицерону, всем известному, я надеюсь. Далее, следующая Фрэнсис Бэкон и американский президент Томас Джефферсон. So you have 1 minute to think and to write down your answers in the chat. I'm waiting for your answers there. Я жду ваших ответов. Пожалуйста, давайте разгоняемся и начинаем работать. Let's check. A Roman philosopher Cicero said, "A room without books is like a body without soul." Комната без книг – это как тело без души. I agree. Next one. An English philosopher Francis Bacon said, "Reading makes me a fool. Reading makes a man fool." Yeah, and the third quotation sounds like, "I cannot live without reading." Я не могу жить без чтения. Так говорил американский президент Томас Джефферсон. And now I want you to answer. Do you agree with these quotations? Or not? Maybe. It's your opinion. If not, please explain your opinion. Maybe you think that reading is old-fashioned and now we should watch films. As for me, I totally agree with all of these quotations. That is why I have chosen them. And the one I like the most is the first one. A room without books is like a body without soul. Yeah, and I can see that you also agree with especially Bacon's quotation. Yeah, thank you. Let's go next to the third task. Now, in the picture, you can see English library. So English students usually read in such places. Now we are going to learn what types of books we can read. Books can be, repeat after me, fiction, non-fiction, travel books, romances, thrillers, adventure, love stories, detective stories, fairy tales and fantasies, ghost stories and mysteries, and last but not least, animal stories and family stories. Yeah, so many types, so many books that we should read to develop ourselves. And now I want you to practice this vocabulary and complete these sentences using the words. So on the right, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words that you should use in task 4 to complete these sentences. I'll give you a couple of minutes. So please write down your answer in the chat. Wonderful. I'm so glad to see the first answers. So I think we are about to check, and it's time for us to know whether your answers are correct or not. A book about killer or a crime is thriller. A story about two people who love each other is romance, of course. A story of a person's life written by somebody is biography. A book which describes real things and events is called non-fiction. Books about imaginary events in the future are called science fiction. A children's stories in which magical things happen is fairy tale, of course. And a narrative about someone who investigates crimes and catches the robbers, killers is called detective stories. Yeah. And a book in which you can find pirates, ships, islands, lost treasures is adventure story. Да, соглашусь, что первое и седьмое предложение слегка друг на друга похожи, но обратите внимание, что все-таки when someone investigates crimes and catches the robbers and killers, it's detective. So we have a mystery there. Now let's repeat after me new words. Biography, science fiction, detective story, thriller, adventure story, romance, non-fiction, fairy tale. Yeah, well done. You did great job. We are going to the next task. As you know, nowadays we have lots of resources and lots of kinds of books, especially printed books and e-books, electronic books. English students are divided into two groups. The first one prefers printed books, and the others love reading e-books. So read these opinions. I'm not sure we can say that it's something like a dialogue, but yeah, they are statements. And answer, what type of book do you prefer? So do you read printed books or do you read e-books? And please don't forget to explain your opinion. Why you prefer the type of book, whether you prefer printed or e-book. So look, the first girl says, I fancy reading printed book because I like the smell and the rustle of the paper. Она считает, что она предпочитает читать все-таки печатные книги, потому что ей нравится запах и шорох напечатанных страниц. Another girl thinks that she prefers reading e-books because they are always by hand. Другая же девочка считает, что чтение электронных книжек намного лучше, потому что они всегда под рукой. And what do you think about this? Do you like printed books or e-books? So as for me, I'm in the first group who prefers reading printed books. Unfortunately, sometimes it's much more expensive than reading e-books, but for me, it's worth it. Oh yeah, I see your answer. Fond of printed books because e-books are harmful for my eyes. Yeah, that's correct. Unfortunately, unfortunately, electronic devices such e-books are harmful for our eyesight. Yeah, thank you. We are ready to continue. Now we are going to work with the text. The text about the world of fiction and famous English writers. There are some difficult words in pronunciation. That is why I have a listening for you, something just for you to listen while you read it. Yes, and you should answer who solves crime with a partner, who always wants to be neat and tidy, who doesn't look like a detective, who wrote adventure novels, and last, who travels in a submarine. Yeah, okay, let's listen.
Module 2, Tale Time. (2A) Bookworms. Exercise 2B, page 16.
Excitement, adventure, and mystery all make up the world of fiction. And here are some of the greatest names in fiction. Who was the Queen of Crime? Agatha Christie, of course, the world's best-known mystery writer. Agatha Christie was born in Devon, England in 1890 and she created many fictional detectives. The most famous are Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Hercule Poirot is a Belgian detective famous for his neat appearance, his obsession with order, and his use of psychology in his investigations of crimes. Miss Marple, on the other hand, is nothing like a typical detective. At first glance, she is an ordinary old lady who loves knitting and gossip, but she can solve the hardest of mysteries and puts many criminals behind bars. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1859. He studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh. It was one of his professors that inspired him to create the most brilliant detective ever, Sherlock Holmes. Holmes's extraordinary powers of observation help him solve the most mysterious cases, with the help of his faithful companion, Dr. Watson. Holmes is very logical and extremely intelligent. He wears a cape and hat, smokes a pipe, and uses a magnifying glass. Jules Verne lived in Nantes, on the west coast of France. He loved the sea, and when he was only 12, he tried to run away on a ship to the West Indies. Unfortunately for him, the sailors caught him and sent him home. Jules had a great imagination and wrote several adventure stories and created mysterious characters like Captain Nemo. In 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Captain Nemo travels under the sea in his submarine, the Nautilus. On his journeys, he meets strange sea creatures and finds an underwater city.
Yep, we have listened to the text, and now you need to answer these questions. There are 5 questions for you. You just need to name them. Who solves crimes with a partner? Is it Agatha Christie? No. I hope you enjoyed this text because I liked it very much. Let's begin checking. The first question is, who solves crime with a partner? Кто расследует преступление с партнером? I think it's rather a simple question. You can answer it even without the text. And no doubt it is Sherlock Holmes. His faithful companion, Dr. Watson, helps him to solve crimes. Yep. Who always wants to be neat and tidy? It's Hercule Poirot, the character of the Agatha Christie's books. We can see in the text that he is famous for his neat appearance and his obsession with order. Here we can say he is crazy about order. Все должно быть по местам. Он безумно любит порядок. Who doesn't look like a detective? Кто совсем не выглядит как детектив? No doubt it's Miss Marple. She is nothing like a typical detective. At first glance, she is an ordinary old lady who loves knitting and gossip. But she can solve the hardest of mysteries. Who wrote adventure novels? It is Jules Verne. And who travels in the submarine? It is Captain Nemo. He travels under the sea in his submarine, the Nautilus. Yeah, we continue working with this text, and now you need to complete these questions with the correct form of the verb. So we are going to practice past simple. Write down your answers in the chat. Just number and what you need to write down in the gap. Нам нужно заполнить пропуски, чтобы сделать предложение, чтобы сделать вопросы в прошедшем времени. В чате вам будет достаточно только обозначить цифру и что необходимо дописать в пропуске. Полное предложение можете не писать. Это лишняя трата времени. Перед тем, как приступать к выполнению, вы на секундочку задумайтесь и вспомните, как у нас образуются вопросы в past simple. Помните, что наше известное окончание «ed» правильных глаголов, оно переходит в did. То есть первый, давайте уже возьмем первое. Первый вопрос будет звучать как «Did he write poems?» Did Arthur Conan Doyle write poems? Be careful, because unfortunately I see a little mistake in the chat. But keep trying and you'll do best. Did Arthur Conan Doyle write poems? Let's find an answer. He created the most brilliant detective stories. The second question is, was Agatha Christie a famous writer? Of course, Agatha Christie is famous for her fictional detectives. She is the world's best-known mystery writer. What did Arthur Conan Doyle study? At first, he studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh. And it was one of his professors that inspired him to create his stories. So who knows if Arthur Conan Doyle didn't meet his professor? I'm not sure that in this case we have this opportunity to enjoy his books. Number 4. What did Jules Verne do when he was 12? When he was only 12, he tried to run away on a ship to the West Indies. Which characters did Jules Verne create? He created lots of them, but the most famous and my favorite character is Captain Nemo. And last question. Where was Agatha Christie born? She was born in Devon, England, in 1890. Yep, thank you for your work. We are ready to do next task. I hope you are not tired. Now we are going to listen to the interview. No, it's kind of a survey, and you should complete the notes. I'll give you some time to look through the notepad to understand what gaps you should fill in. Прочитайте. Перед слушанием нам всегда нужно ознакомиться с заданием, посмотреть на пропуски и, возможно, уже сразу догадаться, что примерно должно здесь подходить по смыслу или какая часть речи здесь подходит. Никогда не забывайте об этом, потому что это 30%, я считаю, успеха на задании listening, а может быть и все 50. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gaps for you to fill in them. Мы с вами уже обсудили, что ходят споры, что удобнее читать книги напечатанные или электронные. Сейчас же речь пойдет немножко о другом. Что же все-таки предпочесть, книгу или фильм? Это тоже вам вопрос на подумать, что для вас важнее. Okay, now we are ready to listen to it. We are going to listen these texts twice. So, the first one, let's go.
Unit 9, Listening, Exercise 2.
Hi there. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm from Culture Vulture magazine, and we're doing a survey about books and films. Can I just ask you a few questions? It won't take long.
Okay. Go on then.
Brilliant. Thanks. Can I ask, how often do you read books? Very frequently, sometimes, not very frequently, or never?
Very frequently. I read 1 or 2 books a week. I love a good book.
And what was the last book you read?
Lord of the Rings, I think. Yeah, I've read it before, actually. That was the 3rd time I'd read it.
Really? And what are you reading at the moment?
Let me think. Oh, yeah, a book called Monsoon by Wilbur Smith. It's historical fiction set in the 18th century in England and Africa. It's really good.
Oh, sounds interesting. Now, the next question is about the cinema. How often do you go to the cinema, would you say?
Not very often. I suppose about 2 or 3 times a year.
Right, 2 or 3 times a year. Okay. Now, let's see. Do you enjoy going to see film adaptations of books?
I've never thought about that, really. Well, I did go to see the Lord of the Rings films when they came out. I occasionally go to see film adaptations of books, I suppose. Some are all right.
And in general, which do you prefer? Reading the book or watching the film of the book?
Oh, reading the book, definitely.
Okay. Why's that? What is it that you prefer about books?
I think it's because, with a book, you know exactly what the characters are thinking. I don't know. It's like you get to know the characters much better. Often when I read a book, you know, the characters become friends almost. And I think with books, I have a clear picture in my head of what the characters look like. And sometimes when you see a film, they look totally different to the way I'd imagined. It can be a real shock sometimes, and a bit disappointing, to be honest.
Well, that's great. Thanks very much indeed. Can I just ask you for a few details? Let's see. Your full name?
Yeah, it was the first time we listened to the text, and after a few seconds, we will listen it the second time. I hope you already managed to feel some of them, and now you will finish it completely.
Unit 9, Listening, Exercise 2.
Hi there. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm from Vulture magazine, and we're doing a survey about books and films. Can I just ask you a few questions? It won't take long.
Okay, go on then.
Brilliant, thanks. Can I ask, how often do you read books? Very frequently, sometimes, not very frequently, or never?
Very frequently. I read 1 or 2 books a week. I love a good book.
And what was the last book you read?
Lord of the Rings, I think. Yeah, I've read it before, actually. That was the 3rd time I'd read it.
Really? And what are you reading at the moment?
Let me think. Oh, yeah, a book called Monsoon by Wilbur Smith. It's historical fiction set in the 18th century in England and Africa. It's really good.
Oh, sounds interesting. Now, the next question is about the cinema. How often do you go to the cinema, would you say?
Not very often. I suppose about 2 or 3 times a year.
Right, 2 or 3 times a year. OK. Now, let's see. Do you enjoy going to see film adaptations of books?
I've never thought about that, really. Well, I did go to see the Lord of the Rings films when they came out. I occasionally go to see film adaptations of books, I suppose. Some are all right.
And in general, which do you prefer? Reading the book or watching the film of the book?
Oh, reading the book, definitely.
OK. Why is that? What is it that you prefer about books?
I think it's because, with a book, you know exactly what the characters are thinking. I don't know. It's like you get to know the characters much better. Often when I read a book, the characters become friends almost. And I think with books, I have a clear picture in my head of what the characters look like. And sometimes when you see a film, they look totally different to the way I'd imagined. It can be a real shock sometimes, and a bit disappointing, to be honest.
Well, that's great. Thanks very much indeed. Can I just ask you for a few details? Let's see. Your full name?
Yeah. I hope you are ready to check your answers. Let's do it together. First, girl reads 1 or 2 books a week. Yeah. At the moment, reading a fiction book. She goes to the cinema 2 or 3 times a year. 2 или 3 раза в год. Occasionally, she goes to see films adaptations. She thinks that with books, you know what the characters are thinking. Yeah, I also think so. The characters are almost like friends when you read a book. Sometimes she gets a shock watching films because the characters look different to the way she imagined. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for your answers in the chat. You did a great job. And now we are going to do our final task. You should answer the questions. What books do you fancy reading and why? And what books can't you stand reading? Also, you should explain your opinion. Какие книжки вам очень нравится читать и почему? И какие книжки вы терпеть не можете? И также нужно объяснить свою позицию. Например, look at the first statement. I fancy reading detective stories because it's exciting to follow the development of the plot. Я обожаю читать детективные истории, потому что очень любопытно, интересно следить за тем, как развивается сюжет. And another statement is I can't stand reading fairy tales because I'm not a child anymore. Я терпеть не могу читать сказки, потому что я больше не ребенок. Ну, это цитата как будто наоборот, очень маленького ребенка. Потому что I think that lots of adults should love fairy tales because in adult life, sometimes we should have one. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute to think, and then we will finish our work. What books do you fancy reading? And what books can't you stand reading? Также хочется обратить ваше внимание, что после фраз I fancy and I can stand мы должны использовать герундий, глагол с инговым окончанием. So we have lots of books. They are detective stories, fairy tales, romances, I don't know, thrillers, fiction, non-fiction. There are so many of them. Yeah, I see. I love fairy tales because there you can find another sense. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are special sense which a child cannot see. And what books can't you stand reading? I want to know your answer, to know your opinion. I'm really interested in it. And I see that some people don't like romance. It's really interesting. I think that we should have romance in real life, not in the book. Maybe you wanted to... Yeah, sometimes it really puzzles us. Okay, thank you for your work. Now I'm ready to answer your questions if you have. Okay. Если у вас остались какие-то вопросы, вы можете написать их в чат. Мы обязательно все решим. Спасибо вам за работу. Было очень приятно видеть ваши ответы. Вы прекрасно сегодня потрудились. Встретимся на следующей неделе. On the first day of the spring, finally. Наконец-то начало весны. Первый день весны. 1 марта у нас будет следующий вебинар на другую очень интересную тему. So, thank you. That's all. Bye-bye.